Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishna Kesubos, Perek Dalet, Chapter 4, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 1. We began it yesterday. We'll quickly just go from the beginning, and then we'll elaborate on what we didn't do yesterday. Narish and Ispatza, a girl that was seduced, Bashto Pagamo Knasa Shalavia, the payment for the embarrassment cost to her, for the devaluation cost to her, or the fine that is paid to her, the fine that's paid for what was done to her, Shalavia belongs to the father. V'atzar b'tfusa. When talking with a woman who was a girl that was violated, the tsar, the pain that the violator perpetrated is paid for, and that goes to the father. The bedin av. If she stood in judgment before the father died, that means the bezdin had made their judgment that the perpetrator has to pay the knas, the 50 shkalim fine. Harehein shalav, the money belongs to the father. Meisa'av, if the father died before the money was actually collected, harein shalach, and the money goes to the brothers. Lo yispeak alamid bedinat shemeisa'av, if she didn't have a chance to stand in judgment before the father died, the whole judgment happened after the father died, harein shalatzma, then the money belongs to her. Next case, the bedinat shalei bagrav. Let's say she stood in judgment before she became 12 and a half. Harehein shalav. The money belongs to the father. Meisa'av, the father dies before collecting the money. Harein shalach, belongs to the brothers. Though you speak, alamed bedinat shabagra. If she didn't have a chance to stand in judgment by the time she became 12 and a half, harein shal asma, then the money belongs to her. So basically the point is that according to the first opinion of the Mishnah, the obligation of knas, that fine of 50 shekel, the perpetrator only becomes obligated once there is a judgment passed about it. And therefore, if the judgment was made during the lifetime of the father gets it, or if he dies before he collects, his sons get it, because it's a debt to him, and his heirs, his sons, his heirs, whatever they be, are going to inherit that debt. And if the whole judgment happened after the father died, then it goes to the girl, and that is both whether the father died or she became a begeres, she became 12 and a half by the time the judgment was made. Okay, this is what we got up to yesterday. Rabbi Shimon says, if she didn't have a chance to collect until the father died, harein shel atzma, the money belongs to her. According to Rabbi Shimon, it is not about the judgment. It is not about the judgment being made to pay the 50 shkalim knas that makes the difference whether the father has merited, has acquired it or not, to be able to say there's a debt to him and it gets passed on to his heirs. It's all about collection. If he's alive by the time the money is paid, the money is his. If he dies before the money is paid, the money is hers, even if he was alive when the judgment was made that the perpetrator has to pay the 50 shkalim. And as we said, all the payments go together. They determining what determines who gets the money is revolving around the knas, is revolving around the payment of the 50 shkalim, but the other payments follow along, even though those payments, essentially the perpetrator becomes obligated in once he did what he did, because these are all monetary values. They're all damages, basically. Okay, and the same thing applies contribution in the case of Begeris. If the father she was still a Nara, she was still between 12 and 12 and a half when the judgment was made. But then, by the time the payment was made, she was already a Begeris, already 12 and a half. The money doesn't go to the father, the money goes to her. Then the Mishnah concludes, Ma'isa Yada Mitziasa, her work and what she finds. The halacha is, if a girl who is the law is that if a katana or nara, meaning if she's under 12 or between 12 and 12 and a half, earns income, she works and she earns income, the money goes to the father. Or if she finds an object that someone lost and you're allowed to keep that object, who gets that object that she finds? Her father. So the Mishnah says, Ma'isi yadeh mitziasa, her work and what she finds. Af al pi shalei gapsa, even though she did not yet collect it, nonetheless, harein shel achin, they belong to the brothers. Okay? So even before she collects them on the behalf of the father, if the father dies before they're collected, it goes to the brothers. Meaning these things, the Ma'aseh Yadayim, her work, let's just talk about her work right now. The work that she does, let me read it to you from the bottom. If a young daughter, Katana or Nara, works for someone her employer is obligated to pay her father, should the father die before he collects the payment, his heirs acquire the right to collect it. Should they acquire the right to collect any debt that was owed to the father at the time of the death. Okay? Now, the point here is that these payments are when the employer pays her income. That's not a fine. It's money owed. And who is it money owed to? The father. And therefore, even if it comes out that he died before the money was collected, right, which Reb Shimon just said, if he dies before the money is collected, it goes to her. In this case, that's not so. Because we're not talking about a fine here. We're not talking about any kind of a fine. We're talking about the fact that her salary is owed to her father. The same way her salary is owed to a worker. In this case, it's owed to the father. And therefore, when she did the work and the employer was obligated to pay, he's obligated to the father. That's a debt to the father. And therefore, if he dies before he collects, at the end of the day, or he dies, if let's say there's some kind of a court case that has to happen for whatever reason, some kind of a court case to decide what's going on. At the end of the day, when things are adjudicated to say that the employer has to pay, he has to pay because that was a debt that he had to the father right after the girl finished doing her work. Doesn't make a difference if he's alive, if there's some kind of a court case involved, or if he's alive by the time the payment is made. This is a debt to the father, a regular debt to the father, and therefore if he dies, it's the brothers who inherit. Now this all works well when you talk about Maisi Yodeha, her income, that we say, even though she didn't collect it yet, even though it wasn't paid yet, it goes to the brothers if the father dies. But that doesn't make sense by a lost object. What are you going to say? A lost object is something that, if you didn't find it yet, you didn't find it yet. Once you find it, it belongs to the father. Right? There's no such a thing as even though she didn't collect it. There's no collecting on a lost object. So, and the wording of the Mishnah was her income and what she finds, even though she didn't collect, if the father dies, it belongs to the brothers. There's no collecting by a lost object. So what does this all mean regarding the lost object? Now, halakhically, it means the same thing, that once she finds something, of course, it belongs to the father. And if the father dies, it goes over in inheritance to his heirs. But the point of bringing in this case of the mitzia, of the lost object, is because if you think about it, a lost object is like anything else he has. He has something, if he dies, it goes to his heirs. The lost object, once she finds it, belongs to him. So it goes over to his heirs. And if she didn't find it yet, it's not his. So why are we bringing in the lost object here? Says the Bartanura, this is to teach us the following rule. Okay, we know that what a Naira finds in her father's lifetime belongs to him. But what she finds after his death does not belong to his heirs. Rather, she may keep it for herself, right? If he's dead and she finds something, who gets it? Her brothers? No, she gets it. Likewise, the income that a Naira earns in her father's lifetime belongs to him. What she earns after his death belongs to her. The Mishnah is teaching us, so to speak, something on the side, a side thing, that one should not think that the income that she made that would have belonged to the father is now a right that the brothers take over. It's not so. The same way by a lost object, we understand that once the father is gone, the lost object is hers. So too, the income that she has the potential of making does not go to her brothers, it goes to her. If the father's alive, the father gets it. Once the father dies, she gets it. The same way, once the father dies, what she finds belongs to her. So it's not teaching us something specifically to the case here of the Mishnah we've been discussing, but it's teaching us a rule related that her Maisi Yadayim, her income, does not go over to her brothers once her father dies. Meaning the income that she's going to make, income that she already made, that was a debt to the father, and that is inherited by the brothers.
Thank you, Rabbi.
All right. One should be careful. You ask a friend for a favor. And the person says, I'm sorry, I can't help you now. You shouldn't say to him, you did that for somebody, you did that for so-and-so, okay? You did it for him, why don't you do it for me? So what do you say to the guy? How do you know that I did it for him? Like, how do you know this? Oh, he told me that you did it for him. That you should not do. Do not do that. He's going to have, the problem is that what happened now is that person is going to, meaning the person who was requested for the favor now is going to be upset with the person who he did a favor for, that he told others about it. I did you a favor. It's not for you to go publicizing to everyone, because once you publicize it to everyone, I'm going to have to do it for everyone. I'm going to have to do it for everyone or for others. So therefore, it comes out, it's rechilas. If you say, how come you're not doing the favor to me like you did for so-and-so who told me you did this favor, that is avak rechilas. That's indirect rechilas. You're basically saying that this person told you something, that in this case he told you something that he did for you, and he told it over to somebody else, and he doesn't want that happening. So in this case, you're basically saying that he did something that you don't want him to do, that affects you. That's rechilas. It's indirect because you're not just trying to tell him, you're not trying to directly say, oh, this guy told me he did this for you. It really was coming out because of the circumstance of asking for the favor, the person is saying no, but it's indirect rechilas, and that is forbidden to do. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.